More exclusive Naruto Lemon videos coming out on my Boosty. You can support me by subscribing. Link in description. He was awarded many titles, but she became the only one who saw him as a simple man, with his weaknesses and desires. And she gave him the most precious gift in the world. She gave him her friendship. And he will do anything to make the friendship grow into something more. Chapter 10. Enjoy watching. Chapter 10 Sansuni. Itachi flew out of the Hokage palace like an arrow and rushed to where he had detected the signal. Before the shinobi had time to roll up the listening seals, he was already near them. A lot has been said about the genius of the Uchiha clan. He killed in a split second, without pity, without regrets. He could come up with the optimal plan to emerge victorious with minimal expenditure of strength and chakra. And his name, which was not at all suitable for a man, perfectly reflected his essence in battles: a predatory, dexterous, dangerous beast. He managed to kill 3 when the 4th, located on the side, wheezed. A girl stood at the window of a small, dimly lit room with a folded fan behind her back and a kunai in her hand. "Wow, date Bayo," she whistled. Itachi, meanwhile, began to search the bodies. After thinking a little, Naruto joined him. "We have long suspected that the elders bugged the Hokage's office, but we could not prove it. They kept the connection off, activating the seals without a system, chaotically. And to keep a Hyuga with an active Byakugan near the residence, or, even worse, an Uchiha with a Sharingan. It only meant not shouting that you knew everything." Naruto nodded, as always picking up her friend's thought. "Therefore, just before the office, I noticed that the connection was active again. But I needed an alibi to leave the Hokage unhindered. The elders knew about our friendship, so people like to see things that aren't really there." He shrugged. "That's it," Naruto said in confusion, lowering her head. Itachi looked at her, sighed heavily, stood up himself, helped her stand, grabbed her by the shoulders, looked into blue eyes full of anxiety and fear. "Naru, did you really believe that I would be offended by you and break off our friendship because of some solo mission? I told you, I believe you." Naruto swallowed as her friends returned to their search. "Besides, it was not difficult for me to draw parallels between you and Shinomori Hino," Itachi explained, searching the secret pockets of the corpses' uniforms. "The image and character are thought out perfectly, but you are too much of an enthusiastic person. And when I was working, I didn't control the smallest details that are known to those who know you well. That is, your posture, the habit of biting your lips when you are nervous, the manner of shaking your head told me that the head of the hospital was used to wearing a completely different hairstyle, for example, a heavy braid. And a similar smell that only I could smell." Sasuke tried to find more tangible evidence, but he was unsuccessful. "You controlled yourself too well in his presence. So that's why he came to the hospital every day, Datebayo." Naruto was indignant. The search was completed. On the floor there were seals, shurikens, kunai, and several chains in even heaps, but there was no evidence indicating the connection of the spies with the elders. "Exactly," nodded the elder Uchiha, approaching the girl. They had time to chat. "We received direct evidence after Danzo's death. You probably forgot, but I was part of the group clearing out Orochimaru's hideouts. The documents that we found said that he kept samples of that same poison only in sound. So only one person could recreate the poison and subjugate it." He came close, hugged his girlfriend, and stroked her hair. "For the death of Danzo, our entire clan is ready to carry you in their arms. If they knew about your involvement, but the truth is known only to my family and Kagami-san and Shursui." He was silent for a while and sincerely, with all his heart, said, "I'm glad you're here, Nere. Welcome back." She looked at him carefully, looking for an answer in his eyes and facial expressions, but Itachi did not lie. He took off his mask in front of her, and the girl smiled. She buried herself in his chest. "I miss you so much." She raised her face again, this time worried, a little embarrassed. "Itachi, I." He pressed her head to his chest, not allowing her to finish her sentence. "Do not say anything. We have nowhere else to rush. Now we have time. But remember." He brought his lips close to her ear, his breath burning her delicate skin, making her shiver. Goosebumps ran down the girl's bare arms. I will never give you away to somebody. What about freedom of choice, Date Bayo? Uzumaki exclaimed with cheerful indignation, pulling away. You have a choice. The Uchiha calmly shrugged. Me or me? The friends looked at each other and laughed. Perhaps Naru is not yet aware of all his feelings, perhaps they don't exist yet. But there's really no hurry. And he will accept any of her choices, but will try to make it what he needs. Because it's Naruto. The most alive, the most unusual. I don't want to hide my thoughts or feelings from her. It's much more pleasant to watch how the long strands escaping from the hairstyle shine like the molten sun, bright blue eyes sparkle, threatening another cheerful, Date Bayo. Not beautiful, there are plenty of beautiful ones, charming, unpredictable, spontaneous. She is so light and light at heart that the mere thought that she will belong to someone else makes her angry. Are you finished there? Sasuke appeared in the window and chuckled, looking at the embarrassed Naruto. Dobe, you are so, Dobe. Team. She flushed, narrowing her eyes. We'll finish now, Otoro. Itachi interrupted their squabble. Was it his imagination, or did they both look at him offended? The black flames of Amaterasu did not even leave ash from the bodies. Only dark, uneven scorch marks indicated the use of the technique. But even the elders could not prove that someone was killed here. Together they returned to the Hokage's office, sat down on the chairs they brought. Only Sasuke managed to jump onto the sofa with his father. The Hokage had not demanded that they observe etiquette and rules in a private setting for a long time. Tsunade immediately installed the seals, scanned the room, and nodded in satisfaction. Great job, Itachi, Naruto. I hope they won't be able to install other seals for a while. Have you destroyed the communication channel? Yes, Tsunade-sama. The Uchiha nodded. There is no evidence left. Okay. The woman slammed the table. I have restored team number 7, now it is a combat squad, Captain Hatake Kakashi. Tonight, at the third training ground, you, Sakura, and Sasuke will have to test what you have learned over these 2 years. The friends looked at each other and nodded. Then the Uchihas bowed briefly and left the office. They decided their affairs earlier. Naruto is the only one left. The girl calmly met the Hokage's gaze thoughtfully. Did something happen, Bachan? She leaned back in her chair and folded her arms under her chest. Naruto, you will officially be assigned to the hospital as a regular ironing. But you will have to retake my exams for rank A. I think you understand that I will not be able to appoint you to your previous position in the near future, at least for a year, so as not to arouse suspicion. I understand, but that's not what you wanted to talk about. Naruto frowned. After Danzo's death, the Root A and BU units were disbanded and incorporated into the traditional A and BU. But then problems arose. Due to the special training and teaching methods of Danzo, all shinobi showed significant deviations in the psyche, especially in its emotional sphere. Doctors will have to deal with this. As you know, every physician is required to study a course in human psychology, and there are those who have chosen psychology as their specialty. Danzo's troops have taken over most of the Irenans of the hospital. Now there simply aren't enough hands to carry out daily duties. The woman looked hard at the student, and she smiled cheerfully and winked. Are you really scaring me with hard work, Date Bayo? And Tsunade laughed. Because she knew, even without being the head, Naruto would secretly take control of everything and improve the functioning of the hospital. One could be calm about this area. Fine. You can be free until evening. I'll come see you start chasing Kakashi. Naruto jumped up and saluted. I obey, Hokage Bie-chan. And she ran away, dodging a heavy scroll thrown after her. A woman's cheerful laughter was heard behind the slammed door. In the evening at the third training ground it was very, very lively. The Sanins, hidden in the shade of the trees, carefully watched as the youth chased Hatake Kakashi. There was no other way to call it. Itachi positioned himself on a tree branch directly above Tsunade's head and assessed the new strength of his brother's team. Sakura Haruno became much more confident in herself and her abilities. Her training with the Hokage had an effect. Deeply in love with Sasuke, she learned to control herself in his presence. She probably realized that she wouldn't achieve anything with screams and hearts in her eyes. She got out of her pink dress and cut her hair shorter. And she took off her rose-colored glasses from her eyes. Now this was the real medic of the squad and an excellent fighter, Tai. Although I still have to study and study. Recently, by the way, she was awarded the title of Chunin. But Sasuke received the rank of Jonin in the last exam. A blurry dark figure with an activated Sharingan flashed across the training ground. He also did not in any way resemble that boy in the little white shorts, whom the entire academy was running after. Dark clothes, a katana on his back. Ototo achieved amazing success in handling it. I learned even more techniques, learned to use the world around me, and optimized my former skills. Now his Chidori was created in seconds and did not take so much strength, and a lot of sharp fishing line was hidden in the seals on his wrists, which Sasuke adored since childhood. Finally, Naruto Uzumaki, the world's only genin sannin. Tsunade-sama said that she was not going to raise the girl's rank so as not to attract attention to her. However, it is not clear that she suffers over this. Look how fun and cool he attacks poor Hatake with Raisengans. He's probably taking revenge for escaping from the hospital. Not caring about everything, she put on her usual dark blue dress with long sleeves, without white inserts. As she said, let them consider this a funny tradition of some Irenans. The main thing is that it is convenient for her, the rest does not matter. And she will somehow survive the opinions of strangers. Behind his back is a folded tezen, covered with a thick, cleverly woven braid. The guys worked harmoniously. Hatake simply did not have time to hide from them. Sasuke was looking for him with his Sharingan, Sakura was literally pulling him out of the ground, and Naruto was hitting him from above with aerial techniques. And you can't say that the battle is going on seriously. Sasuke didn't use Chidori, and Naruto didn't enter hermit mode. They were just having fun, chasing the former mentor, and now captain, all over the field. Kakashi jumped into the nearest river and wanted to use the Suiton technique, but Naruto quickly took control of the water from him, creating streams swirling with a drill. The Doton techniques known to the copy were powerless against Sakura, who was rubbing her fists, and Sasuke ruled over the Katon. And the guys remembered the properties of the Sharingan. Kakashi, therefore, practically did not use seals, working on pure chakra and enthusiasm. Do you think maybe we can save Hatake from reprisal? Tsunade raised her head when Naruto reached into her pouch with a cheerful, date bail. Everyone on the field tensed up, including the Uzumaki comrades. Who knows what secret weapon she hides in her seals? Let's wait a little longer. Naruto is going to use his opponent's weaknesses against him. Sakura's jaw dropped and Sasuke chuckled, clearly holding back his laughter as Naruto showed the captain a plump book with a bright orange cover. So that's why she needed the author's copy with my autograph, Jiraiya exclaimed. And I thought she had joined my work. Itachi watched with interest as Tsunade struggled to restrain himself from hitting his former partner in the forehead with all his might. I restrained myself. It's not in print yet. Meanwhile, Hatake continued to seduce Naruto, twirling the book in her fingers. So you give up, Kakashi-san date bail? Hatake nodded, caught the book in flight, and was lost to the outside world for at least a day. Tsunade shook her head disapprovingly and went out to the guys. Well done, demonstrated excellent teamwork. Sakura, tomorrow you will show Naruto the hospital and tell him everything. Yes, Tsunade-sensei. When the corresponding missions appear, I will call you. You can be free. Eat. The shinobi disappeared into the approaching dusk, and Tsunade headed back to the Hokage residence. Naruto walked home in the company of two Uchiha brothers. Are you sure they won't recognize you? Asked Sasuke. They shouldn't date Bayo. I deliberately took on the opposite character traits. And who would look closely at an Irionin of lower rank? She mechanically touched her chest, where she had the seal. Itachi shook his head, but did not dissuade Naruto. She herself understands perfectly well how observant doctors are sometimes. What are your plans for tomorrow? He asked instead. Pass the exams for A rank Bachan, look at your future place of work and begin the duties of a full-time Irionin. Naruto shrugged. And come to our house. Your parents, Kagami-san and Shursui, really wanted to see you, the elder Uchiha said with emphasis. And come to your house, see Fugaka-san, Mikoto-san and Kagami-san date bail. Naruto obediently agreed. This is where I did my internship. Sakura showed a small laboratory. With a soft smile, she looked at the side table, filled with retorts and piled high with notes. Shino-san was looking after me. At times she was completely unbearable, so cold and reserved, but she always helped me no matter what. I learned most of the potions from her. She was constantly refining and researching something. She was very loved at the hospital. Naruto looked at the same table. For her research, she took as a basis the cunning poisons of the elder of the sand village Chiyo-sama, which she used in the last war, and the antidotes to them created by Tsunade. She decomposed it into elements, established connections and improved it, creating completely new forms of difficult-to-define poisons and antidotes to them. In light of the fact that Akatsuki included Chie's grandson, Sasori, not only a puppeteer, but also a poison specialist, her work could come in handy. In the morning, she still passed a nominal check with the Hokage. They let Shizen, pale as death, have a snack and rest, and they sat down to read the reports. In fact, Naruto had not been away for much time. She honestly deserved her rank A, so Tsunade decided not to waste time checking what had already been checked earlier. Naruto was pleased to return to the hospital, where she was joyfully greeted by the Irionin, with whom she had worked before her. Leaving the village, the girl obediently followed Sakura through all the more or less important rooms, and then quickly joined the atmosphere of vibrant activity. As Bachan said, most of the doctors worked with former employees of the route. The Irionins looked after the shinobi, restored their lost health and simply checked mental reactions. So in the rest of the hospital there were not enough hands, and the new assistant was received with all possible enthusiasm. Naruto immediately put the sheets of notes in a box on the windowsill and began preparing the usual mixtures that were required almost constantly in everyday activities. Sakura sat at the next table. Naruto, she asked cautiously a little later, I know that Jiraiya-san is our best intelligence officer. Tell me, did he manage to find out anything about Akatsuki? Naruto raised her eyebrows. Sakura hastened to justify herself. I heard briefly about this organization from a teacher. But why is it dangerous? The godfather did not hide the data he had collected from Uzumaki. As soon as they left Tanzaku, he dragged her to the nearest tavern. It may be noisy and crowded, but there is less chance that you will be heard. There, under the barrier, he laid out the available information. Akatsuki strives to collect all the bijou, remove them from their carriers. Bijou? Sakura was surprised. Tailed beasts, the number of tails determines the level of strength. From 1 to 9. They have terrible techniques and a large supply of energy, so people sought to use them for their own purposes. For wars, murders and so on. But previously it was believed that bijou could not be subjugated to one's will. Until they came up with the idea of sealing tailed animals into people who could use the power of animals. Such shinobi began to be called Jinchuriki, and they are the main weapon of the village. They were feared and hated for their strength, abilities, techniques, and were considered almost demons in the flesh. How, that hermit Gaara? I remembered their first Chunin exam Haruno. He's a Jinchuriki Shikaku, one-tailed tanuki. Their conversation was successfully interrupted by an urgent call. Naruto wasn't sure she could answer Sakura's question about who the weapon of their village was. Naruto, this is for you. Sakura leaned out of the staff room and shouted throughout the corridor, waving a paper bundle. The doors began to open one after another. The Irenans looked with curiosity at the pink-haired Kunoichi. And she was waiting for Uzumaki. Naruto installed in 4, checked the readings of 2 shinobi who were brought poison from a recent mission, and only then approached her partner. What's happened? She asked worriedly. Here. She thrust the package. They left this for you. Again, it is unknown who. The girl went into the staff room and slowly unfolded the paper. From there slipped a thin scarf over his head, filled to the brim with chakra. Beige, and along the edge there is a thin blue script. From the sands only there can a real work of art be created from a piece of fabric, because desert dwellers are always forced to hide under a large number of layers of clothing. And under the scarf are several early works by Elder Chiyo. And he knows everything. Naruto shook her head, an involuntary, happy smile breaking out from her lips. She quickly moved to the window overlooking the courtyard so that no one would see her so indecently joyful. Although Itachi promised not to put pressure on her, to respect and accept any of her choices, no one could stop the Uchiha from making it clear in such an unobtrusive way that this girl had an admirer. From every mission he brought a gift, never a useless one. Medical techniques or a special collection of herbs, scrolls with rare Uzumaki seals, and where did you find them? And he left it incognito in the residence room or in a small laboratory on what became her desk. Only 3, but each of them made my heart pound and my cheeks turn red. Although Naruto didn't show it when they met in the evening for training. She liked Itachi, she sincerely respected him, but how could she understand that this was the one? Like her mom and dad for life. The gaze slid over the trees of the courtyard and the lonely bench on which patients who were staying in the hospital for an indefinite period liked to sit. A pale, dark-haired guy was now sitting on it and drawing something, looking at the birds chirping nearby. "Sai, he's a year older than you." Minori approached her. Naruto hurriedly wrapped the gifts back into paper, earning a mocking look from the medic. The girl looked out the window again. "What's wrong with him?" she asked perplexedly, glancing at Minori and Sakura. She had seen members of the former root, empty, without emotions. Sai was different from them in something, elusive, difficult to define. Minori nodded, reading the girl's conclusions from the expression on her face. "You guessed right away, but we only realized after some time." The man sank heavily onto the sofa and tiredly rubbed his face with his palms. The room was gradually filled with doctors whose shifts had ended or were just about to begin. They listened carefully, agreed, and complimented the man's story. Members of the former root are practically resistant to treatment, not because of stubbornness or harmfulness, they simply do not understand why they need it. Unlike them, Sai can feel, albeit weakly and incompletely, but compared to his colleagues, this is already a lot. We hoped for his help, that he would reach his people. However, the guy turned out to be even more stubborn than them, because he understands what needs to be hidden from the Iranians. Talking to him is like talking to a doll. "A very arrogant and ill-mannered doll," Sakura hissed. "He carries whatever he wants, whatever comes to his mind. And he doesn't react to anything at all. He's not even afraid of threats." "Nothing." Naruto rubbed her hands. "And we'll stir him up, Date Bayo." "Leave it to me." "Naruto," Kurenos said instructively. "A medic must understand when to continue the fight and when to give up. All efforts are useless. Leave the guy alone and direct your efforts to other patients." It spoke of an incomprehensible resentment towards this Sai. Naruto hissed like an angry cat, eyes flashing furiously. You can't treat if your soul doesn't hurt at least a little from someone else's misfortune. You can't help but sympathize with people. And to save them from pain, this is where cold calculation and a sober mind are needed, Date Bayo. You can't turn away from people, you can't give up. She clenched her fists. "I never give up." She herself was kicked out of the hospital at one time by the same doctors, who considered it unworthy to waste energy on a demon that could be useful elsewhere. Sakura looked down, and Naruto snorted contentedly, put the gifts into the seal and left, catching the approving glances of the Iranians. It's not for nothing that Kakashi-san called her the most unpredictable ninja. Surprise is her strong point. And she's the best at improvising. In addition, you can combine business with pleasure. "Hello, are you Sai?" She smiled, finding herself in front of the bench. "I'm Naruto. Are you an artist? Need your help." And before he came to his senses, she grabbed the guy by the hand and dragged him along, not allowing him to get a word in. "Now I will bring you to the Holy of Holies of our hospital." Along the way she greeted the Iranians cheerfully watching their procession. Sai did not break free, not feeling the danger from the abnormal thing that flew at him. In addition, she is clearly one of the hospital employees, and they were ordered to obey the Irenans. To the main operating room? He asked without interest. The voice turned out to be soft and melodious. Better to the warehouse, Date Bayo. The girl beamed. You see, our supplies are stored there, medicines, dressings and other things, but they are not signed. And recently, we have had an increase in the number of genin who want to become doctors. But they don't yet understand herbs, they can easily confuse everything. Everything needs to be signed for them. Since you are an artist, you should also practice calligraphy professionally. Why can't the others? Well, the girl embarrassedly scratched her nose. We have handwriting, well, we have it. As Itachi said, if you want to convince someone of your lie, believe it yourself. And Naruto forgot for a while that she is a Fuin master, that she must correctly and clearly write out every facet of the seal symbols. She needs to get closer to Sai, to get to know him better. And you really need to work in the warehouse. So why not combine? 2 hours flew by in a flash. All this time, Naruto was bothering Sai, talking about friends, acquaintances and just the village, trying to achieve at least monosyllabic answers and counter questions. Her conclusions turned out to be correct. The root fighters realize that what they did before is contrary to the interests of the current Hokage. They are confused, they don't know what to expect next, where they will be sent, what they will do with them. And they are in no hurry to remove the natural armor of misunderstanding. Their personality is not as deeply damaged as Minori assumed. They are not unemotional, they simply block this part of the psyche, as Danzo wanted them to do. Naruto gritted her teeth and was glad that she had killed the old man who had so bullied talented shinobi, some of whom had even passed through Orochimaru's laboratories. The clock struck 6 when the girl woke up. She pushed another drawer aside. We'll finish it another time. She smiled at Sai. It seemed like nothing had changed in his face, but he seemed to go out. She hastened to explain. My duty at the morgue starts in 15 minutes. Yes, you should rest too. You write and draw great, Date Bayo. Why be on duty at the morgue? The guy bowed his head. We make extracts, completely rewrite the pathologist's conclusions for the Hokage's reports. Dreary work for the whole night, Date Bayo. The girl complained. Okay, see you. See you. Sai nodded and hesitantly raised his hand in response to wave, just like she did. Naruto was proud of herself. There is progress. Itachi recently returned from a mission, handed in a report to the Hokage, and a gift to Naruto. And now he was waiting for the girl near the hospital. He had important news for her. The most annoying thing is that they will almost certainly have to separate again, albeit for a short time. Danger to his friend's life was not something Naruto could ignore. A doctor friend said that she had another duty at the morgue today, and Itachi, without hesitation, headed there. He hid in a cold, semi-dark room, perceiving the rapid approach of a familiar bright chakra. He touched the light braid. And the next moment he was forced to escape from the fire of small shurikens. A bluish Rasengan ball began to form in the girl's hand, so she had to move to the ceiling. Naru, you don't have to kill me, Itachi said calmly, and chuckles danced in his eyes. Scaring me is not necessary, Date Bayo. Naruto muttered, dispelling the technique. It doesn't look like you're scared. The Uchiha raised his eyebrow, pulling out the star from the wall. Naruto shrugged and created a clone, who immediately headed to a small table at the end of the hall. The morgue was located in a long, rectangular basement, cold and gloomy, but the Iranians arranged it so that the duty could be carried out in comfort. In the corner there was a small sofa of an unknown color due to age, with springs sticking out on the sides. Next to it there was a tile, a teapot, several mugs and a bag of tea leaves. Tea? Naruto offered cordially. They often spent time like this, over a cup of tea, flavored with warm conversation. After all, how else can you get to know a person if you don't talk to him? There's no time. The friend shook his head. The Kazakage was kidnapped by Akatsuki. My mission was not in Suna, but close enough to know about it in time. I have already reported to the Hokage. Fear, excitement, anxiety, desperate determination flashed in a kaleidoscope in the girl's eyes. Fortunately, cool prudence prevailed. Send the crow to Sasuke, I'll wake up Sakura. We also need Temari, she is now in the role of Suna's ambassador to Konoha. The girl nodded, creating clones. And she began to make tea, scoured the shelves of a small cabinet in search of muffins or cookies. It seems that the close proximity of the dead did not bother her at all. As she herself said, disgust is the first thing that future Irenans are weaned off. Itachi enjoyed watching her fuss. Wherever this happened, in the hospital, in the morgue, in the kitchen, it always looked so cozy, sweet, homely. But logic, common sense, and harsh practice suggested that Naruto would agree to the role of a housewife in 50 years, if not more. And I liked that too. I liked everything about her. I wanted to see her next to me, to talk. Naruto knew how to listen easily, lightly, with lively interest, which made her soul warmer. As my father said, for a shinobi, especially an Uchiha, the main question is not whether you love a woman, but whether you are ready to lose her. Lose Naruto. Itachi wasn't ready. That's why I wanted to protect, to save. Make it yours. With her full approval. So far everything is going as it should. She almost confessed to him. He was right to stop her then. This would have come out under the pressure of circumstances, excitement and nerves, and he didn't need that. Itachi wanted her to think it over carefully and say it seriously, in a calm atmosphere, when at least for a moment she would not have to rush and worry about the life of another. And also, he was just afraid that Naruto would say that he only saw him as a friend. It's better to wait a little to definitely increase your chances. Sasuke, as cheerful as boiling water, appeared in the morgue, dragging a sleepy Temari on his shoulder. Sakura slipped behind the Uzumaki clone through the door, closed the door behind her, and nodded in greeting. Uzumaki handed out mismatched mugs with small chips, which were probably as old as she was. And she sat down on a free gurney, laying down a clean sheet. Sakura winced and chose to stay against the wall. But Itachi did not suffer, he settled down on the second gurney. Sasuke sat Temari down on the sofa and settled down next to her. Do the heirs of the Uchiha clan have this manner to kidnap girls in the middle of the night, immersing the guards in genjutsu? The hermit raised her eyebrow, trying to look as dignified as possible. At least Sasuke politely allowed her to put on the dress. Your brother has been kidnapped. Naruto ignored her question. Akatsuki organization. Temari turned pale, took a convulsive sip of the scalding drink, and coughed. Sasuke politely, with a bit of mockery, tapped him on the back, helping him catch his breath. Then he looked at his friend. What's your plan? I want to ask you, Datebale. I don't intend to leave Gaara in trouble. After the test, during numerous training sessions, the forces in the team were divided in such a way that the generator of ideas was Uchiha, Uzumaki was responsible for technical execution, and Sakura served as a support group and theoretical basis. And now she has entered the battle. To her credit, she did not dissuade her or become indignant, as she certainly would have done before. She must have really matured. If we're lucky, the elders of Suna will decide everything overnight, she thought, tapping her finger on her lips. Then the hawk will fly from them no earlier than noon. Before this, we do not have the right to advance. This can be regarded as an act of military aggression against the allied village. As far as I understand, Gaara damaged some equipment on the hands of his opponent and his bird, because of which they cannot fly, so the kidnappers will go on foot. Itachi was now thinking out loud. A day, maximum 1.5. It takes another 3 days to prepare the ritual and carry it out. I couldn't find out the details, I only know that Gaara will live until then. When you left, what was happening there? Temari asked excitedly. Your brother was gathering a squad in pursuit. And you didn't even help your brother? You are allies of our village. It was clear that the girl was scared. This was not part of my assignment. The calm, indifferent tone sobered the hermit. So, we can count on him to delay them for a little while longer. Itachi was proud of his Otuto. He had matured, a real leader, a rough plan of action was already outlined in his head. and Uzumaki can also modify it. We are forbidden to appear within Suna until the hawk arrives. It is unknown whether he will. It will be, Temari snapped. Then she sank and shook her head sadly. Gaara is our Kage, the strongest warrior. We alone cannot return it. Moreover, Konoha knows much more about Akatsuki. So, let's take as a working version that the hawk will fly by noon. Sasuke thought out loud. It's 2 days' journey to Suna. If we go after official permission, we'll lose almost another day. It then takes time to find traces of Gaara on the spot. How? Sakura raised her eyebrows skeptically. Niken. Sasuke shrugged. Why not Inuzuka dogs? Naruto now intervened. Kiba will gladly lend Akamaru. The abilities of conscript dogs are broader, and it's easier to communicate with them. Sasuke thought for a moment, drummed his fingers on his knee, and continued his reasoning. Most likely Akatsuki will also put fighters in our way another delay. So we can lose all the time won by the hermits. And you're suggesting? Naruto pushed him. Go now, without waiting for a letter from Suna. If the Hokage gets it, fine, we'll show up as a rescue squad. No, that's okay too, we have our own unofficial pass. He nodded at Temari. We will be an escort group and security for Ambassador Sand. But it's soon night. Sakura objected timidly. For a fighter with the Sharingan, this is not a problem. Itachi answered softly. Sasuke nodded. We have more serious questions, he said gloomily. How will we persuade the Hokage to let him go? How will we persuade Hitaki, who has a call for dogs? And how can we contact Tsunade-sama while running to find out whether she received the news or not? I'll make an agreement with Bie-chan Datebao. She will let us go. I'll take on Kakashi-sensei. Sakura nodded. I'll still think about ways of communication. The Uchiha agreed. It's half an hour to get ready, we'll meet at the Hokage residence. Itachi looked at the serious, determined guys he remembered as children. None of them even considered the possibility of retreat. Even though Gaara was a friend only to Uzumaki, the whole trio respected him. And they couldn't leave one. Itachi's worry was reflected in the Ototo's eyes. They dragged Naruto, another Jinchuriki, straight into the clutches of the Akatsuki. But don't leave her unattended in the village, she'll run away anyway, sooner or later. It's better to help and support her impulses than to lose her. The shinobi scattered into shadows, only the clone, whom the responsible Uzumaki had left to fill out the papers, creaked with his pen. Half an hour later, as was decided, they met at the Hokage residence. Tsunade had not yet gone home, sorting through the remains of fresh mission reports. The sunset had just died down, and a blessed coolness fell on Konoha when the whole company burst into the Hokage's office. Sasuke quickly and efficiently outlined his thoughts and plans. Tsunade looked at the determined faces with a suspicious look and nodded with a sigh. But I haven't figured out how to keep in touch, the Uchiha admitted. Senju and Naruto looked at each other and slapped loudly, one on the forehead, the other on the table. Katsuyu, they said together. Katsuyu is a unique summoning animal. Princess Senju had mercy on her uncomprehending subordinates. She is one, all her copies are herself. And you can communicate through them over long distances. I will be able to contact Naruto when the letter arrives so that the mission becomes official. I will also register it tomorrow. Otherwise, be careful. And do it! Eat! They flew out through the window and rushed to the border of the village. Itachi was supposed to secretly lead them through the barrier, but the Hokage signaled to him to stay. When we receive the letter, you will go to them for support with Guy's team. Itachi bowed and Shunshin went to the meeting place. Team Kakashi, led by a gloomy captain, whom Sakura somehow persuaded, was already waiting for him. Officially, they did not have the right to leave the village, so they had to take a detour, go past the main gate. Itachi walked everyone through personally, only Naruto didn't need it. The protective barrier was installed by the people of her clan, led by the same restless grandmother who took care of her descendants. Since then, the seals have not been changed, nor have the access passwords. Be careful, please. Itachi straightened a stray strand of hair. I will date Bayo. Naruto nodded understandingly, quickly hugged him and rushed to catch up with the squad. Itachi turned around and disappeared into the approaching darkness. Kakashi-sensei, we need rest, Sakura demanded. We can't run without stopping. And then a small box of pills flew at her. The girl barely managed to intercept her. And what does this mean, Uzumaki? She got angry. If I could, I would try to hit my eternal rival. But Sasuke looked demandingly, seriously waiting for an answer, like Kakashi, and she did not risk starting a fight. Naruto listened to herself. Any other time, she would have happily rushed to Suna as fast as she could. Special scrolls for sealing combat puppets, various poisons from rare herbs. But now something was pressing, pulling inside, forcing him to run with all his might. I don't know. The girl ran her hands over her shoulders. But we need to hurry. Some kind of bad feeling. And because of your premonition we will strain ourselves? Haruno raised an eyebrow. Sakura, you know how important all 5 senses are in the shinobi world: vision, smell, touch, hearing, and taste. Kakashi did not stop, looked ahead, but still caught the girl's nod. But real warriors also try to develop their intuition, to sharpen it to the limit. Naruto hardly listened to their conversation. She was driven forward by the desire to help her friend, memories of that long-standing joint mission on which Gaara was almost killed by his own people. And how angry she was at this behavior of the Suna residents. But what struck her most was that her friend was able to forgive them and start life from scratch. And so, he became the Kazekage. And now he is in a death trap. Naruto. A small slug peeked out from the neckline of the dress. Katsuyu. The squad listened to the thin voice. Tsunade herself conveyed that she received the letter. And she sent a squad of Might Guy as support. Did it seem to Uzumaki, or did Kakashi groan muffledly? Thank you, Katsuyu. She thanked softly and stroked the slug, which again hid under the dress. The box of pills returned to her. The girl swallowed one. The stimulants, although not the strongest and most harmful, were able to maintain muscle performance for another 8 hours. Then there will be an obligatory lull. You will still need to rest. But by that time, Naruto planned to reach at least the borders of the desert. A short period of rest occurred during a sandstorm. The sky was clouded with a dull, dense veil. The sand stung, bit, and got into the collar. Luckily, Temari found a small cave where she could wait it out. Naruto sat at the very edge, looking at the clouds of sand raised by the wind. In her grandmother's book, she looked at the section that talked about sealing the bijou, in particular the kyubi. And Kurama himself willingly shared his memories and harmful comments on certain actions of the ancient Uzumaki. In all techniques, absolutely in all, if the bearer was not a member of the Scarlet clan, when the bijou was removed, he died. A shinobi has 2 types of chakra: spiritual, the one that he uses in techniques, and bodily, which fills the muscles, blood, and the cells of the body themselves. They don't notice it, they can't use it, but as long as it exists, even if it is not spiritual, the shinobi will remain alive. Many, having squandered the reserve, destroyed the hearth, remained alive precisely due to bodily energy. Chakra the bijou was so closely intertwined with both species that it was almost impossible to separate them. When taken away, she involuntarily dragged it along with her. Only the Uzumaki could ignore this, possessing phenomenal vitality. Due to their physiology, chakra the bijou acted a little differently, not intertwining with the wearer's own power, which made it possible to safely take out the tailed beast. Despite his red hair, Gaara was not an Uzumaki. And with every minute of inaction, Naruto became more and more worried about him. Katsuyu appeared again from the neckline, climbed onto her shoulder. The vibrations of her soft, gentle body tickled, sending cheerful goosebumps throughout her body. The slug climbed onto his shoulder and leaned against his ear so that only Naruto could hear. Itachi-san asked me to tell you that sometimes you think too loudly, and problems should be solved as they arise. Naruto almost laughed. Somehow, one of Katsuyu's copies ended up in Itachi's possession, and Naruto's companion probably complained that the girl couldn't find a place for herself. So they asked a friend to calm him down. It's just some kind of conspiracy. But they achieved their goal. The tension began to subside little by little. The storm went to the east and subsided there, the sun appeared again. And the detachment moved on. They reached the village in less than 2 days. They were already expected in Suna. Let's go! Let's go! The short shinobi rushed about. We need to hurry. Kankuro's squad was killed, he himself was wounded, poisoned by an unknown poison. We really need doctors. Naruto took a shaky breath. The tension rang like a taut string. This is what her intuition persistently warned her about. Not only Gaara, but also his brother suffered. In a bright room, doctors crowded around the patient's bed. Kankuro thrashed about in delirium, screaming and scratching his throat with his nails. Without his war paint, he looked unusually human. Everyone turned around at the sound of footsteps. In addition to the patient, an old woman of about 80 attracted attention. Wrinkled like a baked apple, with sagging cheeks, watery gray eyes that widened when Kakashi showed up. Her figure was hidden by a black robe, and on her head was a funny cap. But Naruto felt the current of her energy, just like a young shinobi. Quickly, stunningly fast for her age, she rushed at Kakashi with a scream. He was taken aback, not knowing where to go from the obviously insane old woman. Sakura and Naruto rushed forward, and rushed past to Kankuro's bed, where, pushing aside the doctors, they began to examine him. Do you think Kakashi-sensei can handle it? Sakura raised her eyebrow in response to the noise behind her and the captain's pitiful attempts to justify himself. I have to, Datebao. Naruto shrugged, using a flashlight to look at the dilation of her pupils. Sakura went into her mouth. Uzumaki, meanwhile, leaned against the man's hot, sweat-damped chest. The heart beat dully and abruptly. Something was bothering him, something was harming all his important organs. The girl exchanged glances with her partner. Heavy metals? They nodded to each other. While working in the hospital, there were never any disputes between them. They skillfully divided responsibilities when they were given the same patient. However, this rarely happened. While Sakura explained the problem to the doctors, Naruto prepared basins of solution and handed them to her partner. She will have to cure Kankuro, and Uzumaki will take upon himself the poison and the production of an antidote to it. She picked up the bowl of dissolved poison that Sakura had taken away and handed the second one to her assistant, asking her to take her to the laboratory. Kakashi-san, stop doing nonsense! She turned to the teacher, whom the lively old woman had professionally driven into a corner, shrieking something shrilly about the white fan of Konoha, whom she wanted to kill. Hatake looked confused. He was not accustomed to fight with allies, and elderly women at that. And he looked at Uzumaki for support. I'm going to kill him. I will take revenge on the white fan of Konoha for the death of my son. The old woman snapped, taking out a kunai. But this is not White Fang, intervened the second elder, a blind old man with bushy eyebrows. White Fang died many years ago. Do you remember, sister, how worried you were that he did not die by your hand? The elderly kunoichi chewed her lips thoughtfully, looking intently at the smiling Hatake. Yes, he's a bit too young for Fang, she finally agreed. The Suna shinobi behind her took a breath. Naruto understood them. Stopping the elder was not easy, and they would not be forgiven for killing ninjas from the allied village. His gaze caught on the cap and the gray hair that framed his face. Mentally, the girl rejuvenated the woman by several years. And she gasped, Chiyo-sama. Exactly like the images from the war that Tsunade showed her. Why didn't you remove the poison yourself, Elder Chiyo? She said, taking the basin more comfortably. The woman turned her attention, intently, tenaciously, despite her seemingly absent-minded gaze. The poison was made by my grandson, Akasuna. Sasori, she said reluctantly. And I can conclude that he has far surpassed me in this art. In all the arts? She concluded bitterly. I see. Naruto nodded and hurried to the laboratory. Behind her back, Hatake summoned the Niken. There was less and less time left, and they still had to take care of Kankuro and pick up the trail of Gaara's kidnappers. And prepare at least 3 portions of the antidote. Just in case. The small laboratory was located in a small greenhouse, under a transparent thick glass roof. Naruto was amazed. How convenient it is you don't have to go for the ingredients, but pick them right here. She analyzed the poison, broke it down into its components, and determined the effect of each on the final result. Created several clones to speed up work on the antidote. The greenhouse was filled with busily scurrying blondes. A couple of them brought materials and tools from neighboring laboratories so that each double did not stand in line, but did their job. While the original was completing the analysis, the others had already prepared the basis. The Sonova workers looked with wide eyes at the boiling work and tried not to interfere, unlike Elder Chiyo. This is the first time I've seen that they use such a chakra-intensive technique when you can get by with your own efforts. She creaked, sitting down on a chair. And aren't you worried about Kankuro at all? It seemed like you considered him your friend. Naruto added a couple more inflorescences and rubbed them. Her hands performed their usual, mechanical work while she examined Chie. Cunning, smart, a real elder, and besides, she started some kind of test. What does she want to achieve? I believe in Sakura and I know that she can handle it. It's not for nothing that she's a student of the 5th Hokage, Datebeo. She shrugged. We don't have much time, Gaara may die. So wouldn't it be better to divide the work and entrust the patient to someone who can handle it, instead of jostling around in the room and disturbing her? What about technology? Shien narrowed her eyes. I am Uzumaki, for me it is not expensive. Everyone knows the stamina and chakra volumes of the Scarlet Clan, so even Chie couldn't find fault with the girl's answer. Naruto bit her lip and shook her head. Sasori's poison was based on Chie's poison, only he improved it and made it more destructive. A lot of components, one mistake and the antidote will become ineffective. However, it was not in vain that she studied the works of Chie-sama for a long time in Konoha. He's a genius. She was forced to admit in a whisper. And she caught an echo of pain in Chie's eyes. Sasuke came in and prevented him from asking a question. Are you finished? He asked his friend. Naruto looked at her friend with annoyance. Just a little more, and she would probably be able to get the elder to talk. Why did her grandson leave the village? How did Suna let such a talented shinobi go? Almost. Kakashi-san's dogs found Akatsuki's hideout. We leave in 4 hours, we need to rest a little, and Sakura is exhausted. She pulled out Kankuro. Naruto nodded, taking note. The clones dispersed, passing on the information. I have 4 portions of the antidote ready, she said. 1 is for Kankuro, the rest are in reserve. Okay. He came almost close and ran his hand along the back. Don't worry, Naruto. The girl smiled faintly. Thank you, Sasuke. They were given 1 room. They didn't need more for a short rest. Kakashi sat down near the wall near the door and dozed off. Sasuke chose a corner opposite the door. Sakura lay down on the futon, and Naruto took the windowsill and leaned her forehead against the cold glass. Despite the concern for Gaara, a cold calm reigned inside. They will cope, no matter what happens, they will cope, because they are a team, a group. And they will save a friend. The girl relaxed her muscles and circulated chakra throughout her body. It's a pity that Katsuyu had to let go, but what doesn't exist doesn't exist. It is necessary to use the allotted time profitably. In order not to disturb her friends, she left the room, feeling the close attention of the activated Sharingan. The Uchiha said nothing and closed his eyes again. In the end, she is a grown girl and understands that she cannot let the squad down due to fatigue. Coffee for the desert was truly a royal treat. Not all shinobi could afford it. But there was one in the palace. Naruto, enjoying the strong smell soaked in milk, drinking a drink from a huge mug, gutted her saddle bag. Despite its modest size, there was much more hidden there than in shinobi backpacks. Kunai for various barriers, scrolls with weapons, food supplies, clothing and medicine, a couple of scrolls with chakra reserves and several fireballs that Itachi made her. Blank paper, special ink and brushes. Naruto opened the antidote scroll with a light pop. A lot of multicolored ampoules, sorted by size and date of manufacture. During her leaving from the village, she was keen on collecting formulas of poisons from various villages and preparing antidotes for them. Just in case. Suna, Chiyo-sama. On each ampoule, instead of a signature, there is a formula. This makes it easier to figure out what and when to work hard. At least for Uzumaki. Judging by the analysis of Sasori's poison and the formulas of the antidotes she has. Naruto put 3 of them aside, sealed the rest again, and hid the scroll in her bag. They won't save you, but they will be able to slow down the effect of the poison. I'll go with you. Naruto shuddered so unexpectedly Chiyo crept up. In my old age, I want to participate in battle for the last time. If you die, then as a shinobi should, she said proudly. Besides, my grandson is there. It's my duty to figure out what happened to him. Naruto sighed as she finished her coffee. I'm not a squad leader, I can't decide. But you can convince him. The old lady winked slyly. For the first time in days, Naruto laughed sincerely. The squad moved forward at a steady pace, following behind Hatake and Pakken. Naruto was restoring her chakra reserve as she walked. Haruno. For the umpteenth time, the Uchiha was amazed at her endurance and reserve. She ran without rest, made an antidote, did not sleep during the break, and was still as fresh as dew in the morning. And only the usually carefree blue eyes darkened with anxiety. A source of chakra flashed ahead, Hatake made a sign to stop, and Sasuke activated his dojutsu. From that very first defeat, he dreamed of revenge, wanted to try new techniques, his strength on that swordsman from the fog. But I had no idea that their meeting would take place so soon. It was he who was sent by Akatsuki to detain the squad. Hashige Kisame, and behind his back is a huge semi-intelligent sword Samahada. It absorbs chakra, making a reserve for its master, causing the shinobi to be called the Tailless Bijou. Sasuke had been painstakingly collecting information about him since returning with Tsunade to Konoha. Naruto tensed and frowned. She probably felt the pressure of the chakra. Her clones attacked the grinning swordsman. Well, really Shinobi Konoha is not capable of more? He said mockingly. A huge wave, a tsunami, rushed towards them. On its crest, waving a bandaged Samahada with a predatory cry, the swordsman himself rushed. Sasuke and Naruto moved forward, blocking the others. The fireball blossomed and turned into a wall. The Uchiha did not skimp on chakra. Nearby she took out the Uzumaki scrolls, opening her own katan. Water and fire clashed, hissed, and the clearing was covered in thick, wet steam. Sasuke considered his options. You cannot use techniques directly, Samahada absorbs them like a sponge. So only Tai. It's a pity Rock Lee isn't with them, that's who could fight back. But he and his team left for a mission before Naruto returned and still haven't returned. Eyes darted from one partner to another, assessing their capabilities. Sakura is the squad's medic, Kakashi is not so good at pure taijutsu, Chiyo is the puppet master, Naruto is the medic and… He beamed. Here it is. Master of Fuinjutsu. She must have the appropriate seals. He approached the squad, called his friend and commander and gave them information while Kisame was distracted by countless blonde clones with Raisengans. The swordsman destroyed them with a laugh, clearly amused. There is one Fuin. Naruto nodded. A trap that drains chakra from an enemy and transfers it to the person to whom the barrier is bound. But, the Uchiha responded understandingly. Both opponents must be inside the barrier, where everything depends only on their abilities. I will have to close you there. Hatake corrected, tracking Kisame's movements out of the corner of his eye. Together we have a better chance of winning. Give me time. Naruto nodded. I am tired of this. Meanwhile the swordsman complained. A couple of seals and a huge bluish shark is rushing towards them. The shinobi scattered, dodging fangs and what turned out to be very sharp fins. But Sakura and Grandma Chiyo didn't have time. Kisame flew towards them at great speed and imprisoned them in a water prison. Are you really going to leave your comrades to die? His small, disgusting eyes sparkling mockingly. No way, Datebeo. Naruto rushed at him. Where? Sakura, locked in the water, exclaimed, powerlessly hitting the walls of the ball with her fists. Uzumaki, run, idiot! You must complete the task. Only Tai Tessen against the sword. Sasuke followed his friend, the Chidori sang in his hand and slid along the katana blade. The shine, the ringing, the sparks being struck, the endless circling of him and Kakashi around the enemy, everything just to distract him from the Uzumaki clones swarming nearby. And she herself is probably there. Sasuke jumped away, Naruto was nearby, squeezed his wrist, and put a seal. You should be as close to him as possible, Datebeo. She whispered. The Uchiha nodded and again jumped into the center of the battle, dodging another attack from the shark, almost close to Samehada. Naruto and her 3 clones at the corners of the square made synchronized seals. The lilac barrier was erected in a matter of seconds, and they became its base to make it stronger. After all, the sane kunai Kisame with his devilish strength will demolish in one go. The seal burned his wrist when the swordsman tried to break through the barrier with Samehada. The sword drank chakra from the seal, therefore from Uzumaki, and Sasuke drank chakra from the sword. Kisame quickly realized his situation, but it was already too late. Naruto had placed seals that limited the use of chakra. Violation was punishable by wild pain throughout the body, tearing apart the consciousness and blazing mind. Quickly and accurately, the shadow copies destroyed Kisame's water clones, holding his comrades captive. The water prison collapsed, no longer receiving nourishment from its creator, and Sakura and Chiyo collapsed on the grass, coughing and choking. The Uchiha and Kakashi attacked the swordsman. Each of them at one time copied Might Guy's technique. They acted together like 2 whirlwinds. Sasuke felt such ecstasy for the first time, hitting the criminal's body with all his might. His body sang, as if it were performing the movements itself, without the slightest command from the brain. And only out of the corner of his eye did he allow himself to linger on his sweaty girlfriend, who was controlling the Fuin. The exhausted body covered in scraps of a cloak fell onto the grass. Naruto removed the barrier, the seal from Sasuke's wrist disappeared, as if it had never existed. The whole company approached the Nukenin, and they were dumbfounded. Instead lay the corpse of a completely different person, with a Suna protector on his forehead and an Akatsuki cloak. Yoshi, Chiyo whispered. One of Kankuro's squad. Sakura examined the body with professional interest. Look! She turned to Uzumaki. There is some kind of medical equipment here. I don't know anyone like that. She stated, puzzled. Kabuto, his experiments, Datebeo. The girl nodded in response. We have to go. Hatake interrupted their conversation. A minute later there was no one on the field. While the dog led them further, relying on his sense of smell, Uzumaki sadly thought that she needed to somehow strengthen her techniques. She won't be able to ride around forever using only tiny Raisengans. The godfather suggested adding more chakra to enlarge the ball, but she was thinking of mixing the technique with wind or water. Or even build it only on the natural chakra. It should be a killer thing! But that's all later, when time comes, but for now Pakken pointed to a large rock with a paper seal in the very center. Familiar shinobi were already standing near her. Naruto! Rock Lee was happy. The girl hugged her friend, nodded Tenten, smiled at Niji. Hi, I have not seen you for a while. And Guy started his usual song. I overtook you, my eternal rival, Kakashi. Hatake smiled sourly. We had a little trouble along the way. He shrugged. I hope you don't mean me, Chiyo said threateningly. Of course not, elder. Hatake immediately waved his hands. Nei-san, what are you doing here? Sasuke was surprised. Hokage-sama sent me along with Might-san's team, Itachi said calmly, smiling at Naruto with the corners of his lips, receiving a radiant smile in response. Now Uzumaki was sure that everything would definitely end well. It can't be otherwise, because Itachi is nearby. He is one of the strongest shinobi and just a genius. Inside there, Niji activated his Byakugan. Something terrible, dark, powerful. I've never seen anything like this. Gaara? He is still alive, but hanging in the air. Chakra is drawn out of him. There is very little left. This is a special Fuin. Seal of the 5 Peaks. There are 4 more seals that need to be removed at the same time. Niji nodded, scanned the area and gave out the coordinates. All this time Itachi made sure that the Chakra Gaara is not missing. Guy's team connected the transmitters and quickly fled to the indicated places. Kakashi jumped onto the rock. After a couple of minutes he nodded and pulled off the seal. Sakura! The girl ran and hit the stone with all her might. The huge rock hummed strangely and crumbled into fragments. Inside was a huge natural cave. At its end stood a strange and terrible statue, rolling its eyes. Her hands, sticking out of the ground with outstretched fingers, were shackled in wooden shackles. On each finger stood a ghostly figure with glowing eyes. Bluish dragons burst out of the statue's mouth, entangled the unconscious Gaara in a cocoon. Scarlet threads of chakra stretched from his eyes and mouth, and went into the grinning mouth of the sculpture. Sasuke, get ready to take out Gaara. The friend nodded, preparing a strong fishing line. Naruto rushed forward, around strange exploding bugs, needles from the tail of some short, hunched-over shinobi. The Rasengan hit the dragons, the clones with the second hit the statue's open eye. The girl jumped back, took out a Tenzin, and used it to shield herself from the Samban, who were probably poisoned. Whirlwinds of blades rushed towards the opponents. Some of them landed straight in the fingers and eyes of the statue. This was enough for the technique to be interrupted. Small tails of chakra were absorbed back into Gaara, and his body flew to the ground. Naruto only heard the fishing line whistle and saw thin threads entangling the Kazekage. The next moment she was already pressed to her chest, and the scarlet cover of Susanoo was burning around her. Itachi landed next to Gaara, who was already being examined by Sakura. Deidara, Sasori, take care of them, said one of the ghostly figures. What about the boy? Inquired the blond man, one of whose eyes was covered with long, lush bangs. He doesn't have Shikaku in him anyway, and he won't survive without the bijou. An indifferent, metallic voice. Naruto watched as Akatsuki's shadows dissolved, as the statue disappeared in a puff of smoke. Only 2 members of the organization remained. Naruto, Sakura whispered quietly. He's dying. There is very little chakra. It no longer supports his body. There is one technique. Uzumaki answered just as quietly, remembering. But I won't be able to help you in battle. I'll be behind the barrier. Go ahead. Itachi took out a kunai. We'll figure it out ourselves. The main thing now is to save Gaara. A transparent, small, but very strong barrier stood up in a minute. Outside, only the clone with the Tenzin remained. Inside, Naruto summoned Katsuyu. The slug examined and felt the patient, and shook its antennae dejectedly. We'll have to rebuild everything practically from scratch, Naruto. And I make no guarantees. She pronounced her verdict in a thin voice. We have to try, Katsuyu. You can't give up, Datebao. Gaara is very important to his village. And for you. A warm smile was heard in the voice. Yes, he is my friend. Katsuyu enveloped Gaara, immersing him and Naruto in herself. This way she can keep him alive, while the girl treats his wounds and fills his body with chakra. But the reserve of Uzumaki herself will go towards this. The pulse beat lightly and erratically under my fingers. Gaara walked further and further, and had no intention of returning. Naruto snorted. That means I'll have to force it. Shikaku was clearly not going to part with his carrier easily. He clung to him to the last. This led to the ritual drawing out the spiritual chakra and affecting the physical chakra. If they had come a little later, there would have been no one to save. There is a colossal amount of work ahead, to subtly divide the energy, to saturate not just every organ with it, every piece, shred of the body, almost every cell. See that it takes root. A difficult, painstaking task that requires all your concentration. Itachi waited until Naruto disappeared inside Katsuyu. I saw her tension, thin streams of chakra flowing from her fingertips, absorbing into the Kazekage's body. She can handle it. The man had no doubt about his perseverance and obstinacy. Uzumaki. The clone winked at him encouragingly and straightened the tesson in his hands. Well, the blonde was upset. And I was hoping to take revenge on the Kazekage. I have a personal score to settle with him. He waved a piece of his hand, covered with rags of his sleeve. It won't work. Sasuke bared his teeth and threw a kunai. The blonde dodged and made seals. A huge white bird made of clay flew up to him. It's good that I have a spare one, he rejoiced. Tried to catch me, boy. Nuknin flew out. We're after him. Hatake approached Sasuke. Can you cope without us? Quite. Sakura cracked her knuckles, looking predatorily at her opponent. Itachi was not so optimistic. Akasuna Sasori, the famous puppet master who captured an entire country with his puppets, is a specialist in poisons without antidotes. It is unknown what trump cards he has up his sleeve. The doll's tail darted without warning, revealing secret compartments from which needles sprayed out in all directions. Itachi dodged thanks to the Sharingan. And thanks to him, I saw the threads of chakra with which the elder intercepted Sakura. They danced and dodged, not allowing the needles to hurt themselves. Haruno has already reported that there are only 3 portions of the antidote, which will still be useful in the future. This doll's name is Hiriko. Once upon a time he was also a shinobi of our village. Chiyo pursed her lips. Human puppets are created from ninja bodies, so they retain the ability to use chakra and all their techniques. I'm glad that you haven't lost your memory, Grandma. There is mockery in the voice. I remember all your actions, grandson. The bitterness poisoned more than any poison. Oh, just don't need tearful tragedies. He probably rolled his eyes. You always remained a shinobi. Even when she sent her family and friends to certain death. You still blame me for this. Chiyo shook her head. Obeying the movements of her deft fingers, Sakura soared into the air to deliver a crushing blow to Hiriko. I stopped blaming anyone a long time ago. The cloaked figure shook his head. The hood slipped off and Chiyo gasped. The purpose of my existence was art. What could be more magnificent than power imprinted in eternity? He hasn't changed a bit over the past 20 years. The woman whispered in shock. Akasuna meanwhile took out another scroll. I think you will appreciate my next gesture. A doll of a disheveled black-haired man with narrow eyes, wearing a tattered robe, torn in places. Third Kazekage. The elder exclaimed. Itachi frowned. The third was considered the strongest ruler of Suna. He possessed a powerful weapon, iron sand. He made a magnet from his chakra, with the help of which he controlled it. As far as the Uchiha knew, the third disappeared without a trace 20 years ago. Efforts to find him came to nothing. So you killed him? As well as the fourth. As soon as I saw the bodies of the Kazekage and his assistants, I began to suspect your machinations. The fourth one didn't interest me. Sasori waved it off. My former partner from Akatsuki, Orochimaru, rather noted here. Itachi finally managed to catch the enemy's gaze, however, the genjutsu had no effect on him. The man took a closer look. His whole body did not exist. Only one single clot of chakra beat in his chest. Powerful, thick, but unique. No circulation system or anything like that. The doll opened its mouth, and the notorious iron sand began to spill in the air with a metallic rustle. It was assembled into various forms, kunai, samban, and simple sharp lumps capable of crushing the unwary. Susanu's shroud could withstand any blow, and Akasuna frowned. That's not interesting, my future puppets. I think it's worth splitting you up. He threw off his cloak. Sakura screamed in surprise. Sasori Akasuna himself was a doll. Chakra poured into the wooden body from a cylinder in the chest, which Itachi felt. He opened another valve, from which 100 tiny threads burst out. The scroll unfurled with a rustle, and dolls in dark red cloaks soared into the air. Like a swarm of angry forest bees, they obscured the sky. Everyone had a weapon in their hands. Katana, saber, spear, morning star, kuzuringama, and much, much more. And they were all aimed at the Uzumaki barrier. At one time, Grandma managed to conquer and hold the castle with the help of only 10 dolls. What will happen if I use my fighting 100 against that girl who is trying to save the current Kazekage from death? Itachi turned around sharply. Naruto floated inside her summoned's body along with Gaara, her hair unraveled and flowing in waves around her. Wide-open eyes saw something inaccessible to others. A thin thread of blood ran from the bitten lower lip down his chin. She treated, completely absorbed in her work, her mind, thoughts, feelings, everything revolved around Gaara. Her clone is unlikely to be able to hold the barrier alone. Protect the girl. Chiyo nodded. I can handle my grandson myself. Even if it's the last thing I do in my life. And I will help. Sakura supported, adjusting her gloves. Itachi rushed into battle with the Battle 100. He spun around, dodging poison blades, arrows, threads, and chains. And he didn't let anyone near the barrier. He intercepted and blocked blows, caught numerous explosion seals. His phoenix flowers bloomed in the air, burning the dolls to ashes, imbued with chakra shurikens cut the puppeteer's threads. The crows of numerous clones croaked deafeningly, and there seemed to be no fewer dolls. But their remains crunched underfoot when Itachi ran up and struck. Naruto's copy actively helped him. Uzumaki could not stand by when her friends were in danger. She wasted her chakra on wind techniques. Streams slid, wrapped themselves in snakes, breaking the necks of opponents. Blades of the wind whistled, cutting everything in their path. She mowed down more than 1/3 of 100 when the energy ran out. With a soft pop, the clone disappeared. Itachi dodged another stream of fire that erupted from the doll's mouth. The second attacked with a cutting water whip, which the man vaporized with his katan. And they kept climbing and climbing, like evil demons, with terrible, inhuman eyes. They had virtually no invulnerable spots, and Susanu's cover Itachi placed Naruto on top of the barrier. She must be safe. It's hard to fight when you can't use the strongest weapons Genjutsu and Black Flame. Dangerous, especially near allies. But Itachi was a genius, he still destroyed the dolls. Because he had someone to protect. Nearby, Sakura was methodically, persistently smashing the doll of the third Kazekage. Her tenacity was clearly passed on from her teacher. 2 portions of the antidote have already been taken, the chakra is almost 0 but still he fights, gritting his teeth. And Grandma Chiyo is not far behind, she is tired, out of breath. The iron sand has deprived all the puppets except Sakura, and her right hand, but she does not give up. He hides from both Sasori's fire and his sharp cutting water. When nothing remained of the fighting 100, a cold, calculating anger welled up inside. No one has the right to threaten people dear to the Uchiha. Itachi fired his own body using a special technique. The surrounding world blurred, the muscles groaned indignantly, as did the arm touched by the spikes. You can use this technique for a short time, for a short distance. It increases physical data, speed, strength, endurance. And it makes you pay with your health, torn ligaments, if you overdo it. Uchiha Chiyo died during the Third War while defending his family. He danced alone against a squad of 50, and failed to stop in time. He defeated them all. His body was mutilated, but his face retained the expression of a man who had done everything right. The chakra-fortified fist pierced the cylinder in Sasori's chest. Itachi looked coldly into the doll's eyes. Akasuna was fading away, chakra slowly flowing out of him. Itachi took out his hand and pierced the cube with a pair of swords. Just in case. There was a pop and a hoarse groan behind him. The barrier disappeared and Naruto fell onto Gaara's unconscious body, coughing up blood. Itachi rushed towards her as fast as he could. Deidara led his pursuers further and further from the shelter. Sticky, tenacious bugs fell from the bird, attached to clothing and exploded. Jananav Konoha was saved only by the constant replacement technique. Sasuke, can you hold him for a while? Are you sure, Kakashi-san? Only recently did Hatake awaken in his dojutsu Mangekyo. Its use put a tremendous strain on the brain. Especially if the person did not belong to the Uchiha clan. Yes, we need to deal with him as quickly as possible. The captain snapped. Sasuke shrugged and sped up. He jumped out right in front of the bird, smashing it into pieces with his chidori. Kakashi used the transfer technique on the second arm of the demolitionist, tore it off, moving it to another dimension. But even without arms, Deidara turned out to be a nimble type. He clenched the kunai with his teeth and thus managed to parry their blows. He ran, jumped throughout the forest, hid, created clones from clay. However, the latter was of little help against dojutsu. Sasuke was sweating and tired, received several scratches. Kakashi was almost constantly holding his eye when they finally managed to lure the bomber into a trap. A thin line wrapped around his body, squeezing him as copies of Kakashi were placed at specific locations on the barrier seal. Deidara clenched his teeth and spat out the kunai. His body began to swell, chakra flowing in all directions. The Jonins jumped back, activating the barrier just in time. They were clearly underestimated, because Deidara, hiding in the nearby bushes, ended up inside the Fuin anyway. It was not in vain that Sasuke spent so much time training with Uzumaki. She loved to drive him into a trap and leave him sitting in the company of her shadow clone, just as talkative and restless as the original. The Uchiha passed through one of the walls, since the Fuin was tuned specifically to his chakra. I'll definitely have to thank Naruto again. And he calmly cut off the head of his grinning enemy. This is not a game where you can feel sorry and let go in the hope of correction. The demo man is dangerous, and primarily for one blue-eyed, blonde-haired Jinchuriki. They searched and burned the body because no one had the scrolls, and leaving the body or carrying it on oneself was dangerous. Who knows if Deidara's accomplices are nearby or not? And they were glad to themselves that the demolition man had no hands. On the Jounin's chest they discovered a third mouth, sewn up with a harsh thread. And around him are strange seals. If the Nukenin had managed to unravel the thread, it is unlikely that they would have survived such an explosion. We need to go back. Itachi looked worriedly back to where Sakura and Naruto remained in the company of Itachi and old lady Chiyo. Now I have a bad feeling. Sasuke nodded and the Jonins rushed back. Naruto almost disappeared into Katsuyu's caressing warmth surrounding her. She restored the body, damage, chakra, restarted the Kirakuki, saturating it with energy. And at the same time she held the barrier, controlled the call and shared forces with the slug. The salty smell of blood filled the air around him, and thick, warm drops flowed from his ears and down his neck. Naruto erased them impatiently as she continued to work. If only Gaara had to be restored without wasting chakra on Fuin and summoning. Her reserves would have been just enough, but otherwise, she couldn't cope. Naruto coughed. Her throat was mercilessly tearing, the iron taste of blood was felt in her mouth. The barrier fell first, followed by Katsuyu, who apologized and disappeared into the smoke. The girl began to cry in despair. So much effort, and all in vain? Her hands, still exuding weak chakra, covered her dry, wrinkled palms. Help me, girl. Chiyo looked at the crying girl, whose efforts had gone to waste. But she succeeded, almost succeeded. And she remembered the words she had said before. They ran to Gaara's aid, and she had discussed the benefits of weapons such as Jinchuriki. The girl stopped, turned around, furiously slashing her scythe into the air. Her fists clenched, her chest trembled with barely restrained emotions. I am the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox, she said clearly. Seething rage bubbled up in every word. Who are you to decide what we should do? Decide our fate? How are you different from us? If you hadn't put Shikaku in Gaara, nothing like this would have happened to him. He wouldn't have suffered all his life. You know nothing about him, and have not tried to find out. The worst thing was that there was no hatred in her eyes. Only pity poisoned by rage and bitterness. Then Chiyo realized, Naruto knew what he was talking about. She understands Gaara like no one else, because she herself went through it. And that's why now she's crying so bitterly, quietly, buried in the chest of a half-dead shinobi. And so Chiyo decided to use her secret and most intimate technique that she created to make her grandson happy. A powerful wave of chakra of a strange bluish hue passed through Naruto's palms. I came up with the resurrection technique myself, Chiyo said, without taking her eyes off the Kazekage's pale face. With its help, you can even bring a doll to life. The only price to pay for this will be the life of the person who used it. It can be used to treat, but even then, life is shortened. You've done almost everything, girl, you've done it right. I just need to pick up a little bit. Gaara's eyelids fluttered once, twice. On the third, he opened his eyes and had difficulty focusing his gaze. Gradually he gained clarity, recognition flashed through him. Gaara! I am so glad! Date Bayo. Naruto threw herself on her friend's neck. I'm so happy. The Kazekage hugged the girl, looking around at the others with an incomprehensible look. Naruto, are you okay? Sasuke and Kakashi came running to them. Guy's team, battered but clearly happy with their victories, appeared in the distance. Naruto cried quietly on his shoulder, squeezing with all her might. An unfamiliar black-haired man stroked her disheveled hair, and she squeezed his fingers in response. Elder Chiyo smiled happily, although she tried to maintain an unapproachable appearance. However, she did not succeed. And all around are ruins, fragments of rocks and dolls, blood and bodies. No, Gaara absolutely did not understand anything. Can someone explain to me what's going on here? He addressed those present. In the village they were celebrated as winners. After all, they were the winners. They saved the Kazekage, defeated 2 not-so-weak Akatsuki fighters, and solved the long-standing mystery of the disappearance of the 3rd ruler of the village. So, they were almost forced to accept the hospitable invitation and rest a little before returning to Konoha. The guys didn't resist. The girls, groaning with pleasure, soaked in baths with salts and oils, the guys healed their wounds and gained strength. Rock Lee was sent to explain to Kankuro, Temari and especially Gaara what happened, in the hope that the power of youth would tire the Kazekage, and he would not torture the others. And Naruto was looking for Granny Chiyo, who was hiding from her, using all her many years of experience. Apparently, she knew what question the girl wanted to ask. And I didn't want to answer it. But Uzumaki would not be herself if she did not know how to achieve her goals. She interrogated the entire palace, involved all the shinobi, but managed to intercept the elder before she went back to her mansion. Chiyo was sitting in a small living room, holding a bowl of herbal infusion in her hands. Dull gray eyes from under heavy lids gazed senselessly into space. She was not here and not now, again and again experiencing the death of her son, his wife and her grandson. Naruto sat down on the sofa opposite, poured the broth into a second bowl, and inhaled the fragrant smoke. And she waited until the interlocutor's gaze became meaningful again. Chiyo pursed her lips in displeasure. You won't leave behind, will you, annoying girl? I prefer the word persistent, Datebale. Ask it. The elder agreed with a sigh, taking a sip. How long do you have left? You said that technique takes lives. How much did she take from you? I don't know. The woman shrugged. But I'm unlikely to live longer than 5 years. Yes, I think I'll do it in 5. Naruto gasped for air. But this is so unfair. Is there really no way to help and give you back your life? No, don't think so. I'm grateful for your help, for bringing Gaara back, but the price is too high. Datebale, she said in confusion. Chiyo looked at her bowed head with a smile. And she's not speaking out of malice. The girl's character is as bright as the strands of her hair, sunny, light, warm. She knows how to sympathize. She still takes everything to heart, although it seems like life has beaten her pretty hard, and still managed to maintain her kindness. Naruto Uzumaki, she creaked sternly. In that cave, after completing the technique, it was as if all the years I had lived fell on my shoulders. But you know, never before has their load been so light and pleasant. She smiled and stroked her hair. And then she took on a stern look again. Now let me rest. Naruto bowed and left. Chiyo leaned back on the sofa. Follow her, she advised without turning around. In response, only the swaying of thick curtains. Itachi found Naruto on the balcony of the girls' assigned room. This is unfair, said Uzumaki. Grandma Chiyo is a very good woman, so why can't I help her? Why does she refuse? The man put his hands on thin, fragile shoulders, took a brush and began to concentrately stroke each finger. Naruto rested her head on his chest. Wow, he didn't even notice how she had grown, the top of her head reaching his neck. Naruto, she doesn't want to, because she accomplished everything she wanted in this life. And he understands, you have to pay for everything in this life. If you want to receive something, be prepared to give something in return. Law of life. I know. Her shoulders slumped, she turned around sharply and raised her eyes. But it's still unfair. Comfort yourself with the thought that her last years will pass in peace, because she no longer needs to worry about the actions of her grandson. He hugged the girl's waist and pressed her to him. Naruto in no way resembled thin, slender young ladies. She never went on diets and did not carefully monitor her figure. I thought that training and exercise would prevent excess weight from accumulating. Therefore, she was strong, dense, although very slender. The girl sighed happily and pressed herself close to him. Thank you, she breathed. So they stood on the balcony until the first stars began to light up in the sky. These were their last moments of peace. Because in Konoha, Tsunade congratulated them on the successful completion of the mission and immediately shocked them with new news. There will be new additions to your squad. He himself asked to come to you, and I am inclined to satisfy his demands. Come in, she shouted to someone in the corridor. A black-haired guy with very pale skin entered the office. The gray shirt and black jacket over it were so short that they exposed his stomach. He smiled with only his lips. Meet the new member of your group, Sai. He bowed, then looked intently, without a smile, at Naruto. I want to know more about the connections you told me about. Naruto nodded. Sasuke became gloomy. And only Sakura looked appraisingly from the newcomer to the Uchiha and back, pleased with the new addition.